Hello folks, this is Steve AB4L. I was reading a article on this website and my mind started to wander and found out I fell into deep reminiscing. I'm going to show you what I mean. Now remember, nothing in this episode is a promotion nor is it a recommendation. So I'm looking down at the articles that are current here. There's a lot of current news, financial, stuff like that. Strong opinions of various kinds. Oh, cicada swarm begins rare emergence in eastern U.S. after 17 years. We had one recently. That emergence won't be here in this part of North Carolina. So I'm looking down and it says shocking data shows massive demographic transformation in Europe. You know, there's been a large migration of people, for example, large migration of people from places like Syria during its civil war, which continues irrespective of the wallpaper now, and they ended up in Europe, various places. This is what they're talking about. So they're talking about new data showing the percentage of people not speaking German at home in Austria. New data showing the percentage of people not speaking German at home in Austria underlines just how massive the demographic transformation has been in the country, according to a Hungarian economist. Ominous winds are blowing in the west. This guy, Geza Sebastian, posted on his Facebook page with some astonishing data. According to the latest Austrian statistics, 1/3 of primary school pupils in Austria, 1/3 of primary school children in Austria, it's a country in Europe, are non-native German speakers. In cities, the proportion's even higher. In Salzburg, I've been there, for example, we'll get back to Salzburg, 1 in 2 children do not speak German at home. All of my grandparents had passed on by the time I was born. Actually, not a lot of time just before I was born. At home, my father spoke Italian with his mother. This is a small town up north. At home, my father and his brothers and sister spoke Italian in a town that had a deep, almost colonial English-speaking background. My mother spoke Lithuanian at home with her parents. And she spoke Polish with all the neighbors on the street. And she spoke English at school. A school that I eventually went to also. And when I was a teenager, I remember taking my girlfriend to the Pulaski Club on Saturday nights for dancing with a DJ. So when I read something like this, I just only have to think of my childhood and my parents. And I did know people who barely spoke English, but there weren't that many left. You follow that? My best friend, that we got our ham radio license together at the same time when we were early teens, he went to the French school, parochial school, 1 block away from my house. So like in the morning they spoke English. It was taught by nuns from the convent associated with the church, which was next door, Catholic church. So in the morning they spoke English, but in the afternoon they spoke French-Canadian. Canadian French, Quebecois. So when I read something like this, I can imagine it just from my own hometown from a long time ago, in my lifetime, when I was a kid. So I went to his Facebook page. And the actual reason why I went to his Facebook page is because I was in Austria a little bit in 1966. And he mentioned Salzburg, and I've been to Salzburg. I was traveling with a Brit up from Italy. We came up through the Brenner Pass, which is approximately here, and we were in Innsbruck, you know, ski jumping, Olympics, I don't know, for a day or two, and then we decided to go on to Germany, and we got to Munich. Now, that's about, Munich, this is not Munich, this is Vienna. This chart is trying to show the different degrees of purple. The darkest is over 45% and more people, young people, don't speak German at home. And the lightest is under 15%, and there's gradations. So we went up to Munich, but we then decided to go back to Austria because we were planning to go eastward to Turkey by way of Yugoslavia. So we had to go back to Salzburg. We hitchhiked during the night, and we got to Salzburg just after dawn. And we were walking into the old city downtown when an old man rode by on a bicycle, and I said, "Hey you, come back here." That was in Salzburg. Because several months earlier I had been in Tunisia. And I was standing on a roadside at the edge of a town city called Sousse. Tunisia. Standing at a roadside in Sousse trying to get a ride south, and a young couple who were also hitchhiking, coming from the more southerly direction, stopped to talk to me. It was a guy and a gal. I don't remember the country they were from. It was in Europe. And as we were talking, an old man on a bicycle rode by and circled around and came back to talk to us. And the reason why he did that is that in riding by, he saw we weren't Arabs. He could tell that by the way we were dressed. Now, this picture here is the Roman amphitheater at El Gem. El Gem is here. That was the next place I was hoping to get to by hitchhiking from Sousse. I'd come from the north of Tunisia. That couple had come up from El Gem. The old man was from Innsbruck, Austria. He was 65 years old, and he showed us some newspaper clippings, and his hobby in retirement was to go to countries other than Austria and go bicycling around for fun, take pictures, then to go back and write newspaper articles in the Salzburg, Austria newspaper to make himself famous. And the young couple who were from Europe advised him in German not to go any further south because it would be too difficult for him. They'd already been there. They had turned back, and he took their advice, and he turned around and went back up northward rather than continuing south. Now, why did I divert to that? Because when that English guy and I were walking into Salzburg early in the morning, an old man rode by on a bicycle. I yelled at him, "Hey, you, come back here," and there he was again. So anyway, we continued to Klagenfurt, which was this way. Now we're looking at this map. The problem is, I can kind of read the German, is that there are major concentrations of non-Austrians who are non-German speaking and don't speak German. The kids who are in school don't speak German at home, just as my father and his brothers and sisters spoke Italian at home, and my mother spoke Lithuanian at home. But they may be of a culture such that, if the numbers get large enough, some people in Austria are concerned that German might become a secondary language in 10 years, if you look at a difference in birth rates. 20 years. So he and I had come in through the Brenner Pass. He was English. See, I'm letting my mind. He was English. I don't remember his name. And as soon as we got into Austria, we started hitchhiking, and a red-haired, older Austrian gentleman picked us up and gave us a ride part of the way toward Innsbruck. He was driving an American automobile. I can't remember the brand right now, but it went extinct in the 1950s. And he had been he's Austrian, but he had been a pilot in the Luftwaffe, German Air Force, during the Second World War. He was shot down. He was captured by the Allies. He was handed over to the Americans. He was put on a ship to the United States, and he spent the rest of the war working in a ketchup factory in Illinois. And he told us in English, "Ketchup saved my life." He was grateful, which is why he was driving an American car. That's what he said. So as I said, we got to Innsbruck, we spent a day or two there, then we decided to go this way. We got to Munich, spent one day there at a youth hostel, then we decided we're going to try to go to Turkey by way of Yugoslavia, so that meant that we hitchhiked during the night to Salzburg, and I told you about the arrival of Salzburg. But we needed to get down to Klagenfurt, down here. We needed to get down to Klagenfurt. And we're up in Salzburg. And I remember that we were in Salzburg for a day or two, and one day I took a train ride out of the town, and then afterwards back, or maybe I was hitchhiking. I want to show you where. Remember, I'm reminiscing. I'm letting my mind wander. It's stimulated by this article. So you're going down from Salzburg, and I can't remember if I was hitchhiking there and then took a train. We took a train because I was traveling with the English fellow. We got to this place, W-E-R-F-E-N. See it right there? Now you can see that there aren't a lot of roads over here. There aren't a lot of roads over here. Why would that be? So I put in W-E-R-F-E-N, Austria. Can you see the mountains? Can you see the town down here? Can you see the river valley? Do you see how the river valley runs northwest, southeast? Can you see how there's only one road, two roads? There was only one road then. Now there's two roads, one on each side of the river. There was also a rail line going as it could down through the valleys, not over the mountains and not through, and avoiding making tunnels. But other than that, in that part of Austria, people might live up in the hills, but there are no towns. There are no roads. I remember it vividly. It was beautiful. Now, you see how there's a castle right there? Hohenwerfen. I can't pronounce it in German. Don't laugh at me. Do you see it? Do you see it? If you click on Berg Hohenwerfen closed, then it says $19.18. Here's a view from inside of the castle. Do you love those mountains? Can you see the valley? Can you see the road down there? Oh, that picture's no good. Do you see the valley down here where all the towns are? Do you see the river? Can you see the roads? Can you see how you couldn't live up in the mountains? That was the youth hostel. That's where we stayed. He and I stayed there in the youth hostel for a night on our way to Klagenfurt. Isn't it beautiful? At that time, it was a youth hostel in one part, and another part it was in the regional police station. So for this, I'm doing Where Was Movie, Where Eagles Dare filmed. Do you remember that movie? Clint Eastwood, Richard Burton. 1968. Remember the year I'm talking about is 1966 in Austria. Where Eagles Dare. Richard Burton, Clint Eastwood, and all these other things, right? Whoop, 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 whoop. Why does it jump around like that? They're pushing all this stuff. Allied agents stage a daring raid on a castle. Allied agents stage a daring raid on a castle where the Nazis are holding American Brigadier General George Carnaby prisoner, but that's not all that's going on. And did you see the castle? Where was movie Where Eagles Dare filmed? Here are the key filming locations. Offenwerfen Castle, Werfen, Austria. This served as the main setting for the fictional Schloss Alder Fortress. That's the one where I stayed for a night. In the little bit of the section that was the youth hostel, and the other section was the regional police station. Yeah. I've been in a movie. So after we went, so that the Werfen's about here, and we ended up down in Klagenfurt, and never mind what happened after that. So when I read an article, and I do something like jump to the map, my mind strays to all these other things that I remember from my life. And the unifying thing is, I've been to Austria, more than one place, had some adventures that were really outstanding, and it's in the context of, now I'm going to tell you how, now remember, the guy who's writing this is Hungarian, but he's talking about the Austrians. And we can get a hint of probably how the Austrians are feeling about this. And I'm going to show you what I mean. I wasn't planning on doing this. When I was in Israel, in one place, we were called volunteers, Mitnadvim. And I remember this gal from Switzerland. What are the languages of Switzerland? What are the languages of Switzerland? Now, she spoke English, mostly, kind of. She had an American boyfriend who was well, one day she got upset with me because I accused her of speaking German back home. And she said, no, I don't speak German, I speak Schweizerdeutsch. Now, I'm going to show, I didn't expect this. Watch what happens. Switzerland, official languages, Romanish, that would be the Gypsies. Do you think it's the Gypsies or do you think it's a Latin derivative? I don't remember seeing that name before. French, why would there be people in Switzerland speaking French? Whoa, I entered Switzerland from France. Italian, I entered Switzerland another time from Italy. Excuse me, I went the other way. Yes, both, I passed in both directions, but at different times. Switzerland borders on Germany, but do they speak German in Switzerland? The four national languages, this is authoritative Wikipedia. The four national languages of Switzerland are German, French, Italian, and let's find out what this is. Gallo-Romish or Graeco-Romish language spoken in the Swiss canton of Grisland. It's been recognized as a national language. But what is it derived from? It's a local dialect of, it's Indo-European, Italic, Lato. It's a local dialect of, in India there's a few hundred languages because there are villages that have their own language. No, I'm not making that up. I disagree with what's being shown here. I disagree with that. Hang on. What is it keeps what is Schweizerdeutsch? Schweizerdeutsch, and then they give the actual spelling. Refers to the German dialects spoken in Switzerland. It's an umbrella term for a variety of German dialects with significant regional differences, making it different from standardized German spoken in Germany. Now, as far as she was concerned, it was a language. And I better make sure I don't make that mistake again. She was really nice, but she got upset that day. I still remember it. Now, here they're explaining that it's a series of dialects. They're local variations on the German language that have strayed significantly from what would be considered mainland German Deutsche language. You got to be careful about these things when you meet local people. They can get upset if you refuse to recognize their unique identity. Now, why would I go off on a track like that? Because that's what's behind what's being said here, 20 years down the road. There could be a civil war over it, or worse. What if the country had to break up? That's happened. If you look through history, that's happened. Yeah, in Europe. How many dialects of Italian are there? How many dialects of Italian are there? Notice I didn't say Italian languages. There are no exact number. Italy has numerous dialects, often grouped into regional varieties. Some sources mention around 30 to 34, including languages like Sicilian, Venetian, and Neapolitan, according to some language resources. Some people say there may be as much as 226 dialects. You mean it might be possible that people from the hills of Sicily in the year 1895, if they went up to Venice might have trouble being understood. When I was a volunteer on a kibbutz, Eda Haresh, 1967-68, there were 3 people from England. No, 3 people from London. Excuse me, there were more than that from England. 3 people from London. One of them was a Cockney. The other 2 people, and all of the other people from the UK that were volunteers, couldn't understand him. He was from London. He spoke Cockney. I couldn't understand him either. He was from London. He spoke the Cockney dialect. When I was hitchhiking across North Africa and got picked up by the Land Rover people, the guy driving the truck was a Cockney, but I understood him. His Cockney accent was modified a little bit to get along with people. Until the end of the 19th century, 18th centuries, to the end of the 19th century, Italy, as an example, was basically a series of ghettos, kingdoms, fiefdoms. Then they had to have a unification. So, again, I'm reading an article like this. It attracts my eye because it mentions Austria. I've been to Austria. I look at this. I think of both my travels and people I've met both in Austria and other places. And at the same time, I think of my hometown, my mother and my father, what languages they spoke when they were kids. And I've been enough places to see where we all grow together and we are one, actually we melt together as one culture and we pick the best features from the newcomers. But I've also been where I can see where they form ghettos and it's basically ongoing, under the covers, civil war, nonstop within the country. Which is not the way it was when it was more homogeneous. And is this sort of thing unusual? How many local dialects did they say they thought there were in Italy? Do those, and I'll finish it by saying this. Today even, when I hear somebody from Israel speaking English, I can almost guess where their grandparents came from by their accent in Hebrew. About 5 years ago, I had in a hospital in Greensboro, I was asked to volunteer for a little short medical break-in study. I was going to be the first one. There was an Israeli there bringing a piece of technology that they wanted to try out in U.S. hospitals in order to advance the design. And he was talking to a guy from India named Dweep. And as I was listening to Dweep talking in English and where he said he was from at the end, I asked him, what language did you speak at home when you were growing up? And it turned out he was actually a Gujarati. He wasn't a native Hindi speaker. I could hear it in him speaking English because I've lived with so many Indians. And the guy from Israel, which was from a small moshav close to one of the places I was for a year, I knew that his parents originally came from Poland, just by his accent in Hebrew. I don't know why it works that way. So I don't know, when you read an article like that, is it that complex? And you see a map like this? Shocking data show massive demographic transformation in Europe. new data showing the percentage of people not speaking German at home in Austria underlies just how massive the demographic transformation has been in that country. Steve A. for you. Just letting his mind wander and reminiscing a little bit and brainstorming some of this. Things just happened all through my life. Saying see you in 73.